7 boats left Sancenzo at the start of this global adventure. After one night at sea, they were down to 5. Out of leg 1 went pre-race favourites Movistar with cracks in the hull and twisted bulkheads.
It's like a cannon shot.
Out too, Pirates of the Caribbean with its keel almost falling off. But there was no stopping ABN AMRO 1. They set a new 24-hour distance record.
We ran a time, but we just did 532 miles.
At the finish in Cape Town, it was an ABM 1-2. And victory in the import race put Mike Sampson firmly in charge. Next up, 6,000 miles of Southern Ocean, on the route to Melbourne.
Guys, we're gonna have to get the port board up.
3, 2, 1, 0.
After a slow and frustrating start to the second leg in light airs, the fleet clears Cape Point before picking up speed. The crews are now searching for the strong westerlies that will sweep them towards Melbourne. Movistar's northerly route takes everyone by surprise. But it's not long before there's an even bigger shock. For the second leg in a row, Ericsson's canting keel fails and the boat limps towards land. This time, it's a piston rod that snapped.
You can have great days and absolutely terrible days. We managed to nurse the boat in the last leg, but as you can see with the failure we've got there today, there's not going to be any nursing of that at all. Big risk is that we could snap the other one, so we're sailing very carefully now under storm jib and 3 reef main, taking it slowly. We get her in one piece and try and unravel the puzzle.
It's a long way down.
It's not long before the news reaches the rest of the fleet.
Pretty disappointing news this morning to find out that Ericsson had to withdraw. We had some awesome sailing yesterday upwind with Pirates and Ericsson. We probably had about an 8 or 9 mile lead on them as it got dark last night.
Brasil 1 has bigger concerns. When cracks appear in the deck, Torben Grail's crew have to assess the damage. Heading for land proves the only option.
We broke the first rule. Torben's first rule.
Don't break the boat.
The damage is quite big. I think it's basically we have delaminated the deck from the gunnel, the side of the boat, all the way into the center of the boat, and it's about 45 centimeters wide, so it's a very critical place on the boat, so it's difficult to repair it. It's a big damage.
As an emergency measure to get them to safety, the deck has to be buttressed with spare sail batteries. Having to stop racing is a fate that has already befallen the Black Pearl's crew on leg 1. So far, repairs on leg 2 have been minor, not major.
Got my business suit on, 8 o'clock in the morning. Chauffeur's driving the limo to work. Got a custom paint job on this limo. We got ABN2 in sight out here 3 miles away. We got a couple of our friends heading for the dock. We know that feeling well. It's not a good one. Throttling back on the first night looks like a really good move. It was really rough that night, and the boat was slamming hard, and luckily we kept the Black Pearl in one piece.
Movistar, meanwhile, holds on hard to the north and to a slender lead. Navigator Andrew Cape has taken a gamble, and the results will not be long in coming.
The situation is we're in a very scary position right now. 100 miles away from the opposition. Taking a small gamble to try and make a gain, and the next 24 hours we'll see if that's worked out or not. Hopes are high, but really it's in the hands of the gods.
Stuart BANNATYNE is well and truly on tenterhooks. A world away in New Zealand, wife Amanda is about to have the couple's third child. Hardly the ideal situation, but an occupational hazard for the wife of an ocean sailor.
I married that lifestyle. I've been married 7 years to Stu, and I knew that going into it, I knew what to expect. So I can't really turn around and say to him, look, I think you should give up your career. So I went into the marriage knowing that. Stu told me he wouldn't give up sailing, so if I wanted to marry him, that was the conditions.
A leg 2 appointment with the Southern Ocean will see Movistar's watch captain miss out on the arrival of his third child. And this year the anxieties for both crews and families are perhaps greater than ever.
It's probably more difficult for the wives and families this time round with the Volvo 70s than in previous editions of this race, just because of the accidents, the damage that's happened to some of these boats so far. The wives get a little more concerned about whether these boats are actually seaworthy.
BOUWE, Stu's skipper this time, is very much a family man, and he has said to the guys they can email off as much as they like and phone calls. So Stu normally rings about once a week.
When I'm on watch on the boat, I'm basically concentrating on sailing the boat, and I do that 4 hours on, 4 hours off. But when I'm off watch, I'll be lying in my bunk thinking, hope everything's going okay.
We thought about giving him a code, because otherwise the navigator will know before him, because we don't know what sex it is, and the navigator, KP, will know before him what he's had, and Stu will be so tired that he won't even wake up.
Neil MacDonald's Ericsson finally hits land. It's the ram system which moves the canting keel that has again let them down.
We've got a replacement ram, but it's not exactly the same as the ram we race with. The racing rams are titanium and the replacement ones are steel, and they're slightly different setups, so we're seeing what the possibilities are of swapping it out, and then if that is possible, then perhaps we can carry on. It's really gut-wrenching. The boat's perfect, we were going fast, you know, it's just we've had a gut full of these ram problems. And other teams are running exactly the same rams as us. We've sailed 10, 15,000 miles before this with no problem, and then bam, you know, that happens. So yeah, you can imagine it's not very good. We've got to fight on, and we will, but it's a bit of a low ebb at the moment.
Back on the track, Movistar's gamble has failed. BEKKING's men now find themselves in 4th place and in lighter winds. And there's no news yet from home for Stuart BANNATYNE. The new leader is ABN AMRO 1, some 40 miles ahead of them. But there's no gain without pain.
Got a bit of a headache?
It's a bit sore.
Yeah.
An accident on the foredeck brings Tony Mutter into A&E. The doctor on duty, Jan Deck.
I'm going to put some stirring strips, which basically a little sticky strip, and to make sure they don't come off, we'll laminate them with a bit of super glue. And cover the whole lot with this duoderm, which is like some plastic breathable skin, and should be good to go.
You see the rust on that? That's in our medical box.
For the boats chasing ABN AMRO 1, the situation is about to take a turn for the worse.
Tricky situation with the front coming through, getting a bit complex. Got to find a way through, and hopefully you don't get overtaken by the front, otherwise we'll be in the poo.
In the early hours of day 6, the new weather system duly arrives, rolling over the chasing boats and causing big losses. But ABN AMRO 1 finds new breeze. Suddenly, the black boat is away. Brasil 1, meanwhile, approaches Port Elizabeth, South Africa, having looked hard at their choices en route.
In Port Elizabeth, we have two options. We can repair the boat there, and then we can go out again and join the race and sail the boat to Melbourne, or we can put the boat on a ship. So the only reason to sail is obviously to collect some points. It depends if Ericsson is also sailing, and it depends how many other boats are going to have technical problems. So if more boats will break down, it's you can collect some points.
The Brazil 1 shore crew prepares to make a quick start on repairing the damage. Skipper Torben Grail and his team retire to a more comfortable location as they wait for Ericsson to make their next move. With the fleet sailing so far north compared to the Southern Ocean of more recent races, the screaming winds and icebergs the leg is famous for have so far been avoided.
Like a load of paper. You send us down too far. We're going to die if we crash into that.
The reason for the fleet's northerly course are the ice gates. The first pair lies along the line of 42 degrees south and extends some 400 miles. Boats must either pass above the line completely or pass north of it at some stage.
We've put ice gates on the leg to keep the boats from going deep south into the ice. We've got ice reports and surveys from satellites, so we know approximately where the ice is. We can't say for certain exactly where all the ice is, and we can only pick up icebergs bigger than 75 metres square, which is still a lot of ice. So having seen the results of that survey, we've then determined the best place to put the gates to make sure that the boats don't see any or as little as possible. Simple as that.
Even with the ice gates in place, the dangers of sailing in the Southern Ocean can only be reduced so far. In the 1990 race, then the Whitbread, Martella lost her keel and Merit Cup had to go to her rescue. 4 years later, it was Brooksfield's turn. Her crew left bailing frantically for their lives. Ex-New Zealand Endeavour crewman Stuart Bannatyne was on the boat coordinating the rescue.
The Brooksfield incident was deep in the Southern Ocean, worst conditions it can get. It happened that we were the duty boat running the roll call, and Brooksfield didn't report in. We honestly thought that they'd gone down. We had heard nothing from them. Grant Dalton and Mike Quilter, our navigator, coordinated an effort from the other boats that were near them. There was 60 knots of wind, it was cold, wet, miserable. Nobody wanted to turn around and go back upwind in those conditions, but there was no hesitation from the skippers, and the boats turned around, and preservation of life is still the number one thing.
Often the only help available will be self-help. Every crewman has attended a compulsory sea survival course to practice emergency drills.
It's something that you want to know that you have practiced and that you have seen the inside of a life raft, even though it's inside the pool, and you have physically righted one and you have swum underneath it and done all those bits and pieces, because, you know, if the day comes when you have to do it, it will be that little bit easier. Probably there is more chance of us getting in a life raft in this Volvo than there ever has been before.
Whatever the thoughts in the back of his mind, Mike Sanderson shows no sign of relenting on ABN AMRO 1. His leg to the lead, now well over 300 nautical miles. The first scoring waypoint of the leg is fast approaching. The nearest boat is now ABN AMRO 2. Seb Joss's crew are moving into perfect speed sailing conditions. The 24-hour speed record of 546 nautical miles set by their senior colleagues could soon be under threat. It's Pirates of the Caribbean who are now in third after stalling suddenly in a patch of light air. Yes, CAYARD's boat has reported a problem, is slowing, and is in danger of being overtaken by Movistar. On ING Real Estate Brunel, doom and gloom. After registering some impressive 24-hour mileages, Grant Warrington's boat has fallen off the back of the latest weather system and is languishing over 750 miles behind the leaders. Warrington's predicament gets a lot worse when the mast track breaks and the headboard car falls off. Now he's unable to use the mainsail properly.
Well, it's been a really tough day, and
we just should be smarter. At the end of the day, we have specific people for specific jobs on this boat. One guy's supposed to be a mast builder. He was in charge of this right from day one, and he it up completely, and I'm absolutely livid about it. What can you do about it now? We just wasted 400 miles, and we're never going to catch it back.
There are contrasting fortunes for the boats in South Africa. Ericsson is forced to pull out of the leg altogether and has to ship the boat to Melbourne. But after replacing the delaminated sections of the deck, Brasil 1 is back on the track. Time is not on their side. Even if they finish the leg on schedule, picking up 4 points en route, they will have just 4 days to prepare the boat for the Melbourne import race on February the 4th. Up at the front, ABN AMRO 1 is the first to reach the Kerguelen Islands scoring waypoint at 70 degrees east, notching the maximum 3.5 points on offer. Next through is ABN AMRO 2, followed by the Pirates of the Caribbean and Movistar. So, after the disappointments of Leg 1, BOUWE, BEKKING and CAYARD are again putting points on the board in 5th and 6th positions overall. No points for Ericsson this leg, Brasil 1 looking to salvage what they can. At the top, Mike Sanderson's men have increased their overall lead over their junior boat by 0.5 point to 3.5, but the fleet is barely halfway through the leg. At last, something to celebrate aboard Movistar. Good news in the shape of Felicity BANNATYNE, daughter number 3 for Stuart and Amanda.
It wasn't until about a couple of hours after she was born that we could actually use the mobile phones when I was back up on the ward, and I just rang straight to the boat and got him. He was in his bunk.
Got Capey shaking me going, Stu, telephone. So I was lying in my bunk, he handed me the phone. Amanda was there and we had a bit of a chat. She let me know that everything went well and we had yet another baby girl. Which obviously I'm very happy about. And Amanda as well, and Felicity is very well too, so we're all very happy. So here's a toast to Felicity.
Felicity!
Leg 2, day 9, and ABN AMRO 2 are in hot pursuit of their sister boat, the race leaders and fastest monohull in the world.
Unleash the fury!
Overnight, the westerlies pick up big, strong, consistent. Record-setting conditions, but will they last?
We've been averaging 24 knots for the last 4 or 5 hours. So we're looking good for the 24-hour record.
Gnarly out here, man.
Day 10, 7:10 a.m. Seb Joss's crew notched 546 miles for the preceding 24 hours. ABN AMRO 1's mark is equal. 40 minutes later, the record is broken. The question is, by how much?
550 miles in a wide boat! Yeah! Woo-hoo! 550 long! Rock and roll! Oh man, this is just absolutely gnarly. This is what we came for, man. This is good stuff.
In recent years, the Volvo Ocean Race has become synonymous with speed, even if earlier races were more about survival. Buick 6 covers 305 nautical miles in the first ever event back in 1973. A mark not radically improved until Peter Blake's Steinlager 2 notches 343 miles in 89-90. Later, the same race, the Maxi Fortuna Extra Light clocks over 400 miles to raise the bar dramatically. In 93-94, the new class of windbreak 60s takes up the challenge. Lorries Smith's Intrum Justicia and Rossfield's Yamaha locking horns in a duel eventually settled when Smith logs 428 miles. Smith raises the stakes again 4 years later with 449 miles on Silk Cut. Gunnar Krantz breaks new ground on SEB with 460 miles in the Southern Ocean in the last race, only for John Kostecki's Ilbrook to steal his thunder with 481 on the transatlantic dash to La Rochelle. 4 years later, a new breed of boat, a host of new records. Movistar knocks 530 in training. ABN AMRO 1's 546 is topped on leg 1. Now the young guns crack 550 on leg 2. But how much higher can they go? 555? 560? It's another 8 hours before winds finally back off. The fastest Southern Ocean sleigh ride of all time is over. The new GAN time 24-hour record run, 563 miles. And it's only leg 2. As the fleet head towards the second scoring gate at Eclipse Island off Western Australia, it's ABN AMRO 1 who continue to lead from ABN AMRO 2, with Movistar playing catch-up in third. Pirates of the Caribbean are experiencing problems with their keel, while ING Real Estate Brunel and Brasil 1 bring up the rear. The crew on ING Real Estate Brunel remain upbeat despite the threatened end to their campaign from lack of sponsorship. There's much amusement on board after a magazine story in Australia likened crew member Adam Hawkins to a certain secret agent, following his daring underwater exploits to retrieve an errant sail.
Overnight we've heard that we've got one of our crew members been renamed James Bond.
Yeah, I just rang the bride and she said there was an article a couple of weeks ago or a week ago now.
For his hero-like behaviours in the Southern Ocean. Quite funny really. Considering we call him Chicken Hawk.
So I'm copping a bit of flack from the boys here. Probably shouldn't have told them really. It wasn't the smartest move.
If you've looked around the boat today, there's spring in everybody's step. We're just so amped today. We're taking out miles on ABN 1 since we learnt that we have James on board. And mate, we're going straight to the leaderboard. Don't you worry about that.
Where's the gun, Hawk? Where's the gun?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Street Fighter. Happy birthday to you. Woohoo! And many more. 1-year-old. Yeah.
The young guns on ABN AMRO 2 are still enjoying their moment of glory, capturing the GAN 24-hour monohull record. But below decks, George Peet has made an unusual discovery.
It's 7:15 in the morning. It's daylight because we're sailing east. And frequently there have been smells and disturbances somewhat similar to those of a hamster on board. You crawl into a bunk lately and it smells like the cedar chips and rooted cage of a hamster. So let's delve into the back and see what we can find. Lots of wet articles hanging around this den. Let's see what we got here. We got boots, lots of dripping articles hanging. Uh-oh. Look at, smell that? That's the smell of cedar chips. Ooh, more wet articles, some damp chamois. Look, it's a large male. It's a large male. Even a drinking bottle. Hamsters don't stray far from their water sources.
As ABN AMRO 1 enter a high pressure zone and struggle to find wind, ABN AMRO 2 simply eats up their lead. Within a matter of days, a gap of nearly 400 miles is down to just 16. crew, however, are still first to reach the Eclipse Island scoring gate off the coast of Western Australia. And just over an hour later, Sebastian Joss's ABN AMRO 2 also reached the same mark. Soon after passing the scoring gate in third place, Movistar heads for nearby Albany to assess a keel hydraulics problem. After withdrawing from the first leg with damage to the hull, the race isn't going to plan for the Spanish entry. There's an urgency to get Movistar back in the race as the crew rely on local knowledge.
I got a call yesterday about midday, Sunday afternoon, from the Movistar guys, looking for some diesel and some degreaser and some pretty specific hydraulic oil for the hydraulic rams on the keel. And it took me all afternoon to try and find what they were looking for, and hopefully they've got the right stuff.
You're right.
It's great with this wrapped around there, you know.
Oh, okay. So nothing too serious.
No.
As darkness falls, the extent of Movistar's damage soon becomes clear.
Right now, we're trying to repair the broken ram. There's an end plate on which keeps the piston rod basically in place, and all the bolts have sheared off, so the oil was just streaming out. So basically, we had 2 litres of olive oil who brought us in. We put it in the reservoir, and that kept the boat basically going. So.
This fleet of Volvo 70s aren't alone on the Southern Ocean. The crew of ING Real Estate Brunel are reminded they are sharing the waters with those more accustomed to the harsh environment.
We're back on the environmental ward. Not only the albatrosses are by abundance, but the whales are too. Fantastic.
And those on Pirates of the Caribbean soon get a very close look at one of the many sharks that call the Southern Ocean home.
He's still not moving. Okay, he's gone! There he goes, little fella. I hope you're okay. Didn't look too good. I'll take it now, line.
Having withdrawn from the first leg with keel issues, Paul CAYARD's boat now has further concerns and pulls into Albany just hours after Movistar has moved on.
Just a few hours from Eclipse Island, we lost our port ram when it broke one of our rams, so we had to tuck in here and get on our way.
Well, immediately I called the design office in the United States, and during the night they designed us a solid fixed piece of metal that we're planning on installing to just lock the keel on the center line so that we can get the boat to Melbourne as quickly as possible and, you know, start the repair process. We had most of the materials here except one piece of high tensile strength that we had to get from Perth. And so that's being flown up here, and we'll be here around 3 this afternoon. Then Wallace Machining will have to machine that part and put it with the rest of the stuff that they're fabricating now. And, you know, cross our fingers, I'd like to leave here by midnight for Melbourne.
But CAYARD soon finds his stay in Albany will be longer than he hoped.
Sonia Paul from Pirates of the Caribbean. Well, not too good, because I got this piece of bar that you told me was 300 long. Yeah, well, it's 250. No, I'm not kidding. It's not good at all. Nobody checked it? What are we going to do about that? I spent $800 on an airplane to get it down here. Okay, Sonia.
With difficulty, the new component is loaded on board, but it doesn't stay there very long.
What was wrong? The drawing was wrong. Therefore, it doesn't fit. Quite simple. Someone who made the hydraulic rams and then someone who built the boat might not have had the same plan, and that's what it looks like, because the actual carbon fibre on the boat looks different to what it should be. So someone's made a modification and most should be not told the engineers who have made the drawings for the emergency repair. Therefore, nothing fits.
Can you fix it?
Yes. Suck it and see, as we say. And in the meantime, my wife will get angry because I'm at home. Did you get that?
It's not until just before dawn that the final version of the component is ready to be fitted.
We good on the bow? Let's let the bow go first.
CAYARD and the pirates are finally on their way. On the water, ABN AMRO 1 is just a few hundred miles from the Leg 2 finish, with ABN AMRO 2 in hot pursuit. After their Albany pit stop, Movistar are back in the race, as are Pirates of the Caribbean. ING Real Estate BRUNEL is the back marker. After 5 days in Port Elizabeth repairing a delaminated deck, Brazil 1 returns to the racetrack desperate to make up for lost time. They face the prospect of just a 4-day turnaround to make the Melbourne import race. Days into the leg, still 1,300 miles from Eclipse Island, disaster strikes. In 18 knots of breeze, a fitting failure brings down the mast, shattered in 3 places. For the second time in the leg, Torben Grail's plans are literally in tatters. He and his crew decide to recover what is left, erect a jury rig, and for the time being, head for the scoring gate at Eclipse Island to salvage what points they can.
$550 miles on a white boat! Yeah!
After clocking 563 miles in 24 hours to set a new monohull speed record a week ago, second place ABN AMRO 2 is hard on the heels of its senior boat, now less than 50 miles ahead. On ABN AMRO 1, Mike Sanderson's crew is only too aware of its vulnerability. Sanderson and navigator Stan Honey watched as their lead was slashed in light airs on the approach to Eclipse a few days earlier, and more light and variable winds are forecast. 150 miles back in third place, its keel working for now at least, Movistar.
But actually today is the first day that we're happy again because the breeze has gone up, the speaker is up, and the keel is working well as well, so that's all the good news.
Like Movistar, Pirates have been suffering repeated failures of its canting keel, now locked in the central position. But at least they're on their way again after a stop to try to rectify the problem in Albany. And that's good enough for the Australians on board.
Coming back to Australia is always a good time for me, you know, it's my home. Too right, mate, I love the place.
Meanwhile, in Melbourne, the preparations for the fleet's arrival are reaching a climax after 20 months. The hosts are constructing a race village which will house sponsors and spectators as well as the crews. And the finish in Melbourne looks like it's going to be tighter than anyone could have predicted. After opting to head inshore in search of a sea breeze on the approach to the finish, ABN AMRO 1 has slowed to just 6 knots. ABN AMRO 2 has twice as much wind and twice the boat speed. If the junior boat continues to gain ground at its current rate, the two boats will be in sight of each other at the heads, the entrance to Melbourne's Port Phillip Bay.
We're sort of got some pretty tricky stuff going on here at the moment. We're pretty fortunate to have the sea breeze, and if it can drag us all the way through till the early hours of the evening, if you like, then everything's a bonus. So touching our famous bit of wood here in the nav station of Black Betty. That's us between now and getting in. We basically have no idea when we'll get in. It totally depends what this sea breeze and or then land breeze does for us over the next 24 hours, but we can only assume it's during the daylight hours of tomorrow.
Still without some of their electronics after a small fire earlier in the leg, Seb Joss's crew cut Sanderson's lead from 49 miles to 35 in just 3 hours. After some 6,000 nautical miles of ocean racing, leg 2 looks like being decided in the last 100. After a sleepless night in which their junior rivals cut their lead by another 10 miles, ABN AMRO 1 at last finds some breeze inside Port Phillip Bay.
We're not finished yet. We're nearly finished. It could be a day, judging by this race.
Despite the navigator's doubts, Mike Sanderson's ABN AMRO 1 crosses the finish line of Williamstown to win leg 2, 18 days and 22 hours after leaving Cape Town. After their leg 1 and Cape Town import race triumphs, it's their 3rd straight win. But it's come at a cost to the skipper's strength and sanity.
It's been the most intense 3 weeks of yachting in my life, I'd have to say. It was just full on, unbelievably full on. It was one thing to the next, it really was unbelievable.
So Sanderson's men are first ashore to enjoy the sights and sounds of Melbourne. Just 4¼ hours later, the fireworks over, but the dockside's still packed. ABN AMRO 2 slides out of the darkness to take 2nd place. But even returning heroes have one final obstacle to negotiate on the way to the arrivals' berths near the race village. Bolt Bridge stoops just a little too low for the Volvo Open 70 class's 31.5-metre mast. Helped by a suspended water bag, an undignified heel is required of all the boats before they reach the dock. ABN AMRO 2, the fastest monohull in the world, is no exception. Average age 26, Seb Joss's young crew grabs 2nd for the 2nd leg in a row. And they're 24-hour record holders too.
Oh, it was just a fantastic 24 hours of sailing. The boat was just on fire. There's water everywhere. You're doing 25 to 30 knots the whole time. We had every hatch closed and still the boat's full of water. And and you get on the wheel and you do your hour and you just come off the wheel buzzing. So it was pretty awesome.
So it's another 1-2 for Team ABN AMRO. The crew of the white boat consolidates its 2nd place overall, 5 points behind their senior colleagues, but full of confidence. The following day, some 16 hours after the winners, Movistar crosses the line to finish 3rd. Despite ongoing problems with its canting keel, the Spanish yacht restores its self-respect by collecting 9.5 points for the leg, good enough to claim 3rd place overall.
The Southern Ocean has been totally different than in the past. Like all the homework what we've done has changed with the ice wide, with the waypoints right there. So that's a bit different, but the sailing has been still fantastic. It's some real nice days, but we have been scared as well because just with the issues with the other boats and with the rams and what we had ourselves, it's not a nice feeling. So it's nice to be back in port.
After leg 1 disappointment, a podium finish for BOUWE BEKKING. Could the pre-race favourite soon be back on track? After its earlier dis-masted, time is running out for Brasil 1, which has to be in Melbourne ready for the import race on February the 4th, repaired and re-rigged. Unable to sail fast enough under jury rig, Torben Grail decides to retire from the leg, arranging a rendezvous with a fishing boat, which will supply them with enough fuel to motor to Fremantle. Trucking the boat the 1,700 miles to Melbourne in time will be a tall order. Some 6 days after leaving Albany, the Black Pearl slips into Melbourne to take 4th place. Despite their disappointments, CAYARD and his team still managed to salvage 8.5 points from the leg, which moves them up to 5th position overall. Albany and its frustrations fast receding.
It was just a surreal feeling, a little bit like, wow, it's hard to believe that we just have to stop here take a time out. But I don't know, for some reason I guess I am growing to not expect it, but understand that that's just the way this race is going to be.
If Paul CAYARD's arrival feels anticlimactic, Grant Warrington's on ING Real Estate Brunel is anything but. After a large group of supporters turned out to watch the boat sail past Mornington, the skipper's home suburb, hundreds more take to the water to escort the locally designed and built entry across the line in 5th position, some 2.5 days after the leaders. But with no money and no further sponsorship apparently forthcoming, this surely is the end of the road. Or is it?
So the exciting news is Brunel has come to the party to sponsor us as our title sponsor for continuing on in the race. So we're very excited about that news which we've just received.
Under the last-minute deal with Brunel, a Dutch staffing company, Warrington's boat will line up with the rest of the fleet for the Melbourne import race. But it will miss the next 3 ocean legs before rejoining the fleet for the Baltimore import event and the remainder of the race. At least 1 Dutch sailor is expected to join the crew, but for now, the Australians are back home and still in business. So, at the end of an incident-packed second leg, Mike Sanderson's men extend their lead over their junior colleagues to 5 points at the top of the leaderboard. Movistar now takes 3rd spot overall, while Brazil 1's dismasting drops them to 4th place. Ericsson's keel ram failure relegates them to 6th. Pirates of the Caribbean's finish moves them up to 5th position. The soon-to-be renamed ING Real Estate Brunel remains in 7th. For 2 boats, though, the journey to Melbourne is not yet complete. Ericsson finally arrives on top of a cargo ship and will be ready for the import race. But Brazil 1 faces a race against time. After arriving in Fremantle, she must now be trucked to the 2,500 miles across Australia, and there are only 8 days to do it. Meanwhile, Stuart BANNATYNE has taken advantage of a few days off to go home to New Zealand to meet his new daughter, Felicity.
Hey Ben, the black boat's going to be a problem for you, pal.
The boats line up for the Melbourne import race. Brazil 1 has made it in time to start alongside the others.
Past ABN. Now we've got to stick it to them.
It's dry down the hole, not across the boat.
So the import race is once again won by AMRO 1, who simply didn't make any mistakes. Pirates of the Caribbean are second, Movistar third, Ericsson recovered from a false start to finish fourth, with early race leaders Brasil 1 fifth. Then come ABN AMRO 2 and finally Brunel.
Glad that's over. That was enough stress for one day.
Overall, the standings now look like this. ABN AMRO 1 with a 7.5 point lead over ABN AMRO 2. Movistar are third on 18 points, Pirates of the Caribbean a point and a half further back. Brasil 1 are fifth, Ericsson sixth, and Brunel, who sit out the next three legs, are seventh on 11.5 points. So it's the Dutch entry who continue to dominate this race. You can follow their progress in our weekly updates every Friday night on ITV4. Next up, leg 3, which will take the boats from Melbourne on a short hop to Wellington in New Zealand.